In this video, I'm going to give an example of how to multiply polynomials when they have three terms. So notice we have this expression on the left that has three terms, and we have an expression on the right that has three terms. And they're both in parentheses, which means that we want to multiply everything in this set of parentheses to everything in the second set of parentheses. The easiest way to do that is kind of a modified FOIL method. But with FOIL, it's used to multiply binomials, right? When you just have two terms. So imagine you're just doing a FOIL and just extending it to a third term. But let me show you what that looks like. So let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. I'm going to use my pen to draw a line to go over to show what I'm multiplying, and I'm going to write out each term so that you can see what's happening. For instance, I'm going to take this x squared and multiply it to this x squared over here in the second expression. In other words, if I go over here to the left, what I really have is x squared times this black x squared. And if I put those two together, that's going to give me x to the fourth power. And just remember your exponent rules. Whenever you're multiplying the same base, you take the exponent values and you add them together. In other words, 2 plus 2 gives me 4. And now I'm going to go ahead and multiply the next one. So it's going to be x squared times negative 3x. So I have x squared times negative 3x. Now in this case, x doesn't show an exponent, and that's because it's a 1. So up here, if you don't see anything, right, it's just an x. It means it has an exponent of 1. So if I wanted to multiply this out, notice that also that this x over here does not have a coefficient, therefore it's an invisible 1. So it's like saying 1 times negative 3, which still leaves us with negative 3. And then this x to the second power times x to the first power is like saying 2 plus 1. So in other words, it's going to be x to the third power. So notice what I did initially, I'm just going to write a 1 in front of here, is I just multiplied the coefficient of the first variable, which is 1, times the coefficient of the second variable, which is negative 3, to get negative 3. And then I said x squared times x to the 1 power. And anytime you multiply the same base, you simply add the powers. So you take the power of 2 and add it to the power of 1, and it becomes x to the power of 3. Now we'll go ahead and do the next term. I'm going to go from x squared over to this negative 5. So I have x squared, or x to the second power, times negative 5. And I guess I should draw arrows just kind of showing you that this is the answer once we do the multiplication. And in this case, notice this is just a constant, and it's being multiplied to x squared. So that one makes it real easy. We just write our constant in the front, and then write x squared after it. Right? Because really you're just multiplying this negative 5 to the invisible 1 that's in front of the x squared. And so it becomes negative 5x squared. So we finished the first term. We've multiplied this first term to all three terms in the second expression. We're going to continue this process now for the negative 2x. So I'm going to use my black pen to draw the arrows for that one. So I have negative 2x times x squared. So negative 2x times x squared. So negative 2 times the invisible 1 that's in front of the x just leaves me with negative 2. And then x times x squared means we take this power which for this x, which is 1, and we add it to this power over here, which is 2, because they're both x's, right? They have the same base. 1 plus 2 is 3. So I'm going to put x to the third power. Now we're going to do the next one. So it's going to be negative 2x times negative 3. So negative 2x times negative 3x. So in this case, notice that we do have two x's being multiplied together. Both of those x's actually have a power of 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So we're going to go ahead and write on here, we have x to the second power. And we also need to make sure we multiply this coefficient of the first x, which is negative 2, to the coefficient of the second x, which is negative 3. So negative 2 times negative 3 gives me a positive 6. I want you to notice that I am putting my sign in front of each one of these terms if it's negative or positive, because eventually we're going to put all these together and we're going to combine them in just a moment. But we have to finish the multiplication first. So far I multiplied negative 2x to x squared, and I multiplied it to negative 3x, and now I'm going to have to multiply it to negative 5. So negative 2x times negative 5. So negative 2x times negative 5. And this one's easy because the 5 doesn't have an x, so really we're just multiplying the negative 5 to the negative 2. And negative 5 times negative 2 is going to give me a positive 10. So it becomes positive 10x. I'm going to draw the arrows, just showing that once we do the multiplication, each term that it became. So all we have left now is just 3 terms. We have the negative 4 left. So now we have to multiply this negative 4 to the x squared, the negative 3x, and the negative 5. So for this one, I'm going to use my pink pen and just draw an arrow underneath so you can see what it's multiplying to. So this is negative 4 times x squared. So negative 4 times x squared. And if I multiply that out, it just becomes negative 4x squared. And then I'm going to multiply negative 4 to negative 3x. So negative 4 times negative 3x. And when I multiply that out, negative 4 times negative 3 gives me positive 12. So positive 12x. And then I'm going to multiply negative 4 to negative 5. So now we're going to take that negative 4, multiply it to that negative 5. So we have negative 4 times negative 5. And negative 4 times negative 5 gives me a positive 20. Now you'll notice I did write my terms all, once the multiplication was done, all in different colors, right, back and forth. And that just helps me be able to break them up so I can see them clearly, so I don't accidentally mess them up. Because notice, we got a whole bunch of them, right, that we're going to have to combine. So at this point, when you get to this point, we just got to start combining like terms. So we want to find things that are alike and things that are not. So first of all, I want to put the highest power first. So remember, the highest power goes first. And if I'm looking at all of these, the highest power that I see is x to the 4th power. And there's no other term that has x to the 4th power. So I'm simply going to take it and just rewrite it down here. So let me put x to the 4th power. And I'm going to cross it out. So we're done with that one. Now we got to combine the rest. The next highest term is going to be 3. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to box anything that has a power of 3. So this one has a power of 3. And that's it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and combine it. And when I combine it, since the base and the exponent is the same, I'm really just combining the coefficients. And we can do that with a calculator. If you're not good at doing your negative integers, right, or doing integers, you can go ahead and just put it in a calculator. So we have negative 3 plus negative 2. And notice that gives me negative 5. So I'm simply going to put negative 5x to the 3rd power. Now the next largest power that we have is 2. So for those, I'm going to write them in black, and I'm actually going to box them. So we have negative 5x squared, we have positive 6x squared, and we have negative 4x squared. So we actually have 3 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring all of these lines together because we're going to be combining these values. And we're going to write it right here. So I have negative 5 plus 6 plus negative 4. And it gives me negative 3. So I have negative 3x squared, or x to the 2nd power. So all we have left now is these 2 x's, and then we have a 20. So for the x's, I'm just going to go ahead and circle them. So we have 10x. I am going to write the answer right here because I'm keeping them all in order. And I'm going to add 12x to it. So 10x plus 12x leaves me with 22x. Last but not least, we have, I'm going to put a triangle around it, is positive 20. And we're just going to write that at the very end. So plus 20. And now this is our final answer. We have combined all our terms, and this is our expression that we have left over. We have x to the fourth power minus 5x cubed minus 3x squared plus 22x plus 20.